Hello guys, so in this video we are going to be installing everything we need to run Docker containers, and with that let's start this by opening Windows PowerShell and run it as an administrator. So we're going to install what we call WSL or Windows Subsystem for Linux, which will help us run Docker desktop. Even you can run Linux systems without using VMs. So the command is WSL-L-V. WSL list version. You see we don't have WSL. So WSL dash dash install is what you should write next to install WSL. Let's wait for that. So it's downloading, and let's go to Windows, Microsoft Store. And from Microsoft Store, we are going to download a Linux distribution. Let's go with Ubuntu. You can download any distro you want. This is just to show you that with WSL, you can use a Linux system without a VM. So let's click get. Use cross your device. No, thank you. So with WSL, you can run a system Linux because it works as a system, as a Linux kernel. So let me go ahead and also download Alpine. You can download Alpine if you want to, but for me, I'm downloading Alpine because I'll be using it. So Alpine is a Linux distro which has a very small size, so it's very lightweight. Let's install that too. And please make sure you have a stable internet connection because you'll be downloading WSL and installing it with this Linux distribution, so you don't want to be stuck in a way. So if you don't have a stable internet connection, your WSL may stop. If it stops, you have to run the WSL dash install again. So in my Microsoft Store, I can see that both Linux distros that I downloaded are downloading, and my WSL is downloading too and installing. So with this, let me minimize everything that I don't need. So WSL is finished. So this might take some time, but I fast forwarded the video for it to be short. And after installing WSL, you'll be asked to reboot your system. But if you still have things downloading, don't reboot your system yet. Just reboot after your Linux has done downloading and your WSL has done installing. So now we have WSL, but we can't use it. So WSL list version, WSL-L-V. So you see, we don't have WSL. There's nothing WSL. But let me restart my computer, and you'll see the change. I've done restarting my computer, and from here, once you restart your computer, you'll be prompted with this prompt of WSL. They might ask you to click any key to continue. Press any key to continue. So mine is installing Ubuntu, and as long as you restarted your computer, you will get this prompt. You will be prompted with this WSL kind of shell looking interface. So with this, let's wait it to install this Ubuntu. Now I've also downloaded an Ubuntu LTS and also an Alpine. So let's go back to our PowerShell and see if WSL-L-V, the command we were using to list version, show us anything. Run PowerShell as an administrator. And now we should be able to see the Ubuntu and the Alpine Linux that we downloaded. So first of all, I have to open these and let them install because they're not installed, they're only downloaded. So I open my Ubuntu and Alpine. So these, because of WSL, are running not in VMs, but they're running as applications, and this is a full Linux system on my computer. These are like 3 computers running at the same time on my computer. I have Alpine, I have my Ubuntu and my Windows system running. So you can see how fast it is open. So it's not a resource intense thing to do like using VirtualBox or VMware or any hypervisor creating virtual machines. So as I open this for the first time, they'll be installing, and this might be a lengthy process, but I fast forwarded the video so it can be short in time. Now to PowerShell, you can see that I can see the versions of Ubuntu and Alpine. As long as you use the command wsl-l-v, you will see your Ubuntu and Alpine if you have downloaded them. And next, we are going to install our Docker desktop. Now that we have our WSL, let's go to our browser and we're going to go to Docker and download Docker desktop, the latest version. Now make sure you go to the official Docker website to get the right installer. So we go to Docker desktop. See, we have for Mac, Linux, but I'm personally using a Windows system, so I'll download Docker desktop for Windows. It's a good thing to create your account, your Docker account here. So I'll download this installer. I already have it, so I'll cancel this, but for you, you can save it on your computer. It's a good thing to create a Docker account because you'll be needing it to log into your Docker Hub later. So if you go to sign in or get started, you will see that you can download your Docker desktop, and for Docker Hub, you can sign up. So create an account if you don't have one, click on sign up. And with this, you'll be using this account for your Docker Hub. I already have an account, so this is my account, and creating an account is not a difficult process. I trust you to do that yourself. We're also going to need Node.js because I'll be containerizing a React application, and Node is a runtime environment, so let's download the latest version of Node.js. So I already have Node.js, so for you, you have to save it, but I already have Node.js. Let's go ahead and start the installation. So navigate in your file manager, file explorer, sorry, to where you save the installer of your Docker desktop. And from there, mine is in Docker. The Docker installer is here, so I'll run it as an administrator to start the installation. So this is a lengthy process and you need a stable internet connection to do this. There's a lot of files that we've been downloading and installing, so please have a stable internet connection. And I'll be multitasking, like installing multiple things together, so be aware of so here make sure WSL is ticked. So be aware of your resources as you use them because you might be using a different system. Personally, I have a 12 GB RAM on an i5 Windows computer, so if you have a smaller RAM, please don't overload your computer, just install everything in batches. So I'll install Node also because, yeah, I can run them together and they can run smoothly as they install. Now, it's a next process, but this time, make sure on Tools for Modules, you click this to automatically install all the tools you need and click Next, then Install. That box must be checked all the time. Make sure you check that box because there will be more tools installing after you've installed your Node.js, and those tools you'll be needing them. Now we see our Docker is installing in our Node.js, so we'll wait for them to finish. And as I said, please make sure you have a stable internet connection because it's really key to this process. You have to install on the really stable internet connection. Now, Node.js has finished, so we click Finish, and they prompt us with this prompt, and they ask us to press any key to continue. Now, press any key to continue, and once you press the key, it will be opening a PowerShell, installing all the tools you need as you've checked in the installation before. on the installation wizard that you were prompted before for Node.js. So let this run. It might take some time, but all you have to make sure is that you have a stable internet connection, and let it all download and install all these files because you're going to need them. Now you see this PowerShell prompt has been popped up, and this one is where you will see all your tools being installed, all the tools that Node.js will need. So these are tools like Python, Chocolately, so you can see them as they install. Be patient, this is quite a lengthy process, but you need these tools. You can see they started downloading these tools and installing them on my system. So I let that run and I'll get back to it later. Once all this is done, you'll be given a button on Docker as it's finished installing to restart your computer. Let all the tools on Node.js install. Then you can press the key enter in your PowerShell. After it is done restarting, click accept, and they will ask you why you're going to need Docker and whatever. Just choose what you want and then click continue. You can even skip this, but why not? Just choose a few. Continue, and from here you can see that our Docker desktop is starting. Let Docker desktop start. So as it's starting, let me go ahead and open our Windows PowerShell. Now remember we have WSL, and as we type the command to list versions, we see Ubuntu as we installed it and Alpine. Now that we have Docker desktop, once it's running, our Docker engine is running, we can see also Docker under WSL. Now you can see this is finished. You can take the tutorial. I'll skip this. You can take it. It doesn't take long. So let's copy this command. This is to run our first container. And in PowerShell, let's write WSL list version. And from here you can see we have Ubuntu, Docker, and Alpine. So you can see we have a Docker desktop using WSL2, and it is running. We write the command node-v to see the node version. So you can see our system is using node version 18.15.0. So to see if our Docker can run containers, we're going to use an Ubuntu image. So the command is docker run -it, which means this container will be running in an interactive mode. The container will be running Ubuntu. So this container will see the shell of the container, which is why we use the -t, is to see the shell of the container. Now, we'll be prompted, after this downloading, we should be prompted with an Ubuntu working directory. So we'll be on root or any working directory in Ubuntu. As you see, we are on root. So docker ps, using the command docker ps to see what containers we are running. Oh, sorry, this is a mistake. I'm still in the Ubuntu system. Let me exit. Back to PowerShell, docker ps, and we should see this Ubuntu container running with its container ID. Okay, this will start running. Oh yes, I exited, that's why we don't see the container running, because I exited, now it stopped. Let's paste the command we copied as we opened our Docker desktop, and that should run a container, and we can see that container once we do docker ps. So click enter. So once you hit enter, this is going to run this image, and you can see we used a -d for detached mode. So we're running this in detached mode, so we won't see the shell, and -p for port. We are asked to give access, so we allow access. Now that we have this container running, we can now write our command docker ps to see the running container. Docker ps, and you can see we have this container with the name Cool Blackwell. So docker ps-a shows all the images we have running, all the containers, either running or stopped. So you can see the Ubuntu container that has stopped, and our cool Blackwell container. So Docker PS for running container and Docker PS-A for all the containers on our Docker desktop. So let's go back to so we have these containers. The one running is the one in green. The images is the Ubuntu image and the Docker getting started image. And to see our images in PowerShell as we did with containers, type the command docker image. So it's docker image ls. Docker image ls. You can see we have an Ubuntu image and Docker getting started image. And each image has an image ID. So let's also run our Alpine to see the image. So if you run a Docker container and you don't have the image, your system will pull the image from Docker Hub. So you can see it pulling, it's kind of downloading, and then it will run the container. So you can see we are in Alpine. Once we exit, we go back to PowerShell. And as long as you can run these Docker containers, you can be sure that your Docker engine is running perfectly. So in this Docker series, we'll be containerizing different applications. So for that, we need an IDE. So let's download the VS Code. Make sure you're on the official website. So this is probably the last tool we need to install. So download the installer, system installer, 64-bit. So once we download this, we'll have to install it. So make sure you know the folder where you saved your installer. We'll let this download, and from here we can go to the folder where our installer is, and from here let's run this as administrator to start the installation of our Visual Studio Code. So we agree the license agreement, whoever is this. Oh, let's plug in our power. Okay, now this is a simple installation. So it's next. Click install, start the installation. Finish, and this will launch our VS Code. So here is our VS Code, and it was this. Minimize the browser. Now this is our Visual Studio Code, and this is what we'll be using to create our Docker images. So we'll be installing everything that we are recommended, starting with WSL. So when you go to this icon here, for extensions, you can see we have WSL recommended. We install WSL extension, and there are like a few extensions that we should be recommended as we have installed Docker. So once you delete in the search box, you can see all the recommended containers. There's Docker, we have Dev Container, Kubernetes. So Kubernetes, all the recommended extensions should be installed. We've installed all these extensions. This will be all, and in our next video, we'll be containerizing a React application because we have everything installed and ready